Okay. Thank you. John, are you there? Okay, sorry. Yes, sir. Hi, John. I'm doing fine. We are pre-moments of the show. Okay. Basically what I'm going to do is during these breaks, because we do a break every 15 minutes or so, I don't know exactly, but we will go to breaks every quarter hour. We'll just sit here kind of quietly in between breaks, and that's how it works, okay? All right. Thanks for being on. Are you hearing me fine, yes? Good, good. Thank you. When is this? Yeah. Okay. Say, John. John, what I'm going to try to do during this broadcast is just try to reduce my typing and background sound, because I don't know how much typing they're going to be able to hear from you or I. Do you know what I mean? Okay, sorry. We're about to go live. Let's have some fun with the first episode of Cosmic Obsession NightLife. That's right, everyone. It's Francis, and this is episode number 1 of Cosmic Obsession Nightlife here on American Freedom Radio. I want to welcome you to this first inaugural show with me on AFR. Thank you very much for being here. Cosmic Obsession Nightlife is going to be jam-packed with astronomy, mind over matter, much like the song said. If you don't mind, it doesn't really matter, and if you do mind, then you better find out what's going on, just like me. I have a guest with me here today on the first show. His name is John Sect. John Sect, the sect actually means Comet Olenin conspiracy theories. John, are you there with me? Thank you for being on today. You are from the UK, are you not, John? Okay, I suppose the best thing for me to do with you and the beginning of this first show here on American Freedom Radio is ask you, what's the biggest topic outside our atmosphere in your realm, in your world right now? That's a great response, because honestly, if I was to have any type of object that was most interesting to me, it would be a comet from the Kruetz Family of Comets, which Comet Lovejoy was a part of. For the listeners who are listening, what you're going to get during Cosmic Obsession Nightlife are the things and topics of what astronomers are here to do during the nighttime. Nighttime means we're going to have telescopes and cameras pointed out in space looking at the objects that we're most interested in. During the day, we research the things that we looked at night, and just like John said, for most everyone in 2012, there's going to be an astronomical topic that piques their interest. I can tell you right now, as we roll into this inaugural event, the activity has been high from my viewpoint. What that means is I have been currently involved as an extension of an old bit of research with a researcher who believed with all his heart and believes with all his heart that there is a heavy mass object, some might call our sun's binary star, whatever it is. This researcher says it's out there, and I have been working hard, kind of with him and against him at the same time, to bring to us and myself first the real truth about that object. And to me, the real truth is that object is not there currently, and it has never been there as prescribed by our friend Terrell 03. Now, John, I don't know if you know, just recently I was a part of Terrell's astronomer group, and I had been given access to the inside information as far as where that group was looking for their quote-unquote object. John, let me ask you before I go any further, do you know what I speak? Radical. I think it just steps outside of radical and just goes straight to outrageous. So for listeners who have never heard an astronomy report from amateur astronomer Francis Walsh, who I am, let me go back to the beginning of 2011, when I first realized that telescopes were going to be the only way I could find some truth about a topic that Terrell was speaking of. And Terrell was talking about the same object last year that he's talking about currently, for which I got booted from the astronomer research group for being a little bit too forthright with the information, I guess. I got my hands spanked because I got some information yesterday and I just blurted it out online to all my networks, because that's where it belongs. One of the great things about listening to radio and connecting with your friends on Facebook and connecting to more friends with similar minds in places like Facebook, or a website if you have one. And if you don't know, we have a website, cosmicobsession.com, and you can go there and find out what we're about and what we have down there as making up our history of what gives us an opportunity to go out into space and report back to you. Basically, last year started all off when I first heard a report of a heavy mass object potentially causing major earthquakes here on Earth. Everyone at the time was trying to find out what was causing the earth effects that we were going through, including major storms, tornadoes, the Japan earthquake, earthquakes, Christchurch, and earthquakes and earth changes. And we had researchers out there that said the only thing that could be causing this would be something coming in from outer space. If you know anything about ancient history, ancient text, and astronomy, you know that some of the oldest civilizations recorded on Earth have writings about astronomy. The oldest, the ones that I first, when I went back as far as I could go, currently I came to be knowledgeable about the Sumerian texts, and how this civilization realized that all the planets were round and that they all orbited around the sun. The only problem was that they had a diagram that had 10 planets instead of 9 like we know today. And because of that diagram, which actually exists on a scroll seal, it's a little scroll like a little napkin holder, and on the outside it has a relief, and you take that napkin holder and you roll it over some clay and it rolls out a picture, and in that picture it shows a little solar system, pretty much like our solar system is today, and it's widely accepted that it represents our solar system, yet it has a 10th planet in the system, and many researchers use that diagram as the first stepping off point for there is, should be, was going to be an object that we are not accustomed to in our solar system eventually interacting with us here on Earth. Last year we had many opportunities to look at many objects that fit a general description of that object, but none of them panned out. What I did as an amateur astronomer with the tools that I made available to myself, because through research we have to find our own tools and utilize them to the best of our ability. I interacted with tools on the itelescope.net network of global rentoscopes. Rentoscopes means telescopes, and they have upwards of 17 different research grade telescopes on 3 continents around the world. I know that many of you already know some of this information, but for those of you who do not, myself, Francis, I've used as many of the tools that are available to me, and many of those tools are available to every listener that's listening. Besides those, starting in the end of 2011, in August of 2011, I and my father-in-law, at the bequest of my father-in-law, began to build a permanent dome observatory outside of Houston, Texas, called Cosmic Obsession. So, when you hear Cosmic Obsession, you may think, oh, he's obsessed with space. Well, it's obsessed with space, but in the right kind of way, not in the wrong, major, oh my God, look at that, you know, look at what he just did kind of way. You know what I mean, John? Right, you know, and I've had an opportunity to talk to Terrell, and I basically have the general knowledge that even before Comet Olenin was found, he was transitioning his research. You know, he's given me a basic background of his research, which goes over most truthers' paths. All of us have traveled some sort of path that gets us to 2012, and if you're interested in these topics, whether you have a bad connotation on the word conspiracy or not, I don't really have a bad connotation on conspiracy. I'm just aware that, you know, obviously there's something going on that I don't know about, but that doesn't mean there's something going on I don't know about with everything, you know. So we go through the process, and Terrell told me he was going through the same process, and then the reports of Comet Olenin being discovered, and he was connected with the Omerbacher paper, and I never report that man's name right, which said that the earthquakes were caused by an object outside our solar system interacting with our solar system, and Mr. Oberbacher also put in Comet Elenin because it was available, and he was off. And now, somewhere between that time, which is like October, November, December 2010, because that's what we have to go all the way back to 2010, November, December 2010, and January, February 2010, Terrell got information from another YouTuber called Astro Patriot, and now there's a whole bunch of names, that a bunch of people that have worked with Terrell and on and off. But I would say that the major jumping off point for me is when I fully investigated that video and those videos and what was being reported to me, and finding out that that was manufactured information. And we went and spent the whole summer and the whole fall taking pictures of a comet, Comet Olenin, because we were able to, being told that we were taking a picture of an orbital of a brown dwarf star, and made it all the way through the timeline that Terrell had described of. And now we're even past it, because when it didn't happen, the research was re-examined, and we just, like I had predicted, the object was just thrown out there a little bit farther. And I predict as well, as we go through March 20th and the vernal equinox of 2012, which is the next 188, 89, 187 day cycle for when the next major earthquake is predicted, if we can make it through that. I mean, this is what I've come to as far as the decision, because the heavy mass object plays a big part in a 188 day cycle of earthquakes. It's all being collected together. I'm not sure if on the vernal equinox of March 20th or 21st, or around that date, we'll have another earthquake. But I can tell you that if something happens on that date, it is not because of an object that Terrell is talking about. Right. And I'll tell you, the hardest part about this, astronomically speaking, is that some people will look at me as an amateur astronomer and say, he's been wrong so much, what are you doing? Well, it's a pretty bold claim, and if there's anything that an astronomer needs to be looking for, is something that someone says is coming from nowhere, even if he was wrong once or twice. Now, there's even more developments with this man, Terrell 03, but I'm not going to really get into that, but I'll tell you that I have a little bit more work to do with his latest report, including taking some infrared images, and then once I confirm again that there's nothing in the area that he's speaking of, I'm going to put it to rest again until probably March, when we get closer to the date and more of the reports get up. So if you're wondering why I'm doing this research, because I still feel it's important, and if there's anything an astronomer needs, it's something to look for. Well, I'll tell you, right before the show, I had a conversation with him where I was effectively taken off the astronomer list, because the information I got yesterday I made public too fast. Even though I didn't do anything with it, I just said, here's just what I got, and I'm going to go out and take looks, so I've been taken off the thing. Terrell made a pretty raucous claim on January 7th. I'm not even gonna get into his claim, but if you're listening, you probably know what claim he made. It's a raucous claim. I asked him in this conversation just moments before the show if he had made that claim, and he responded to me no. So I'll get into that more in my private networks, like on Facebook. If there's a listener that wants to contact me, and that's how I met John all the way over in the UK. We connected over on Facebook.com. We might have started off on YouTube, but we ended up on Facebook.com, and I like Facebook.com because I get and have connected with so many interesting and like-minded individuals that are out there willing to help me in any way that they can, with astronomy help, with pointing me in the direction that I need to be looking, that I almost feel like without them I have no chance at being able to report back to the public what's going on out there. It's just been, I've had the experience, I don't know if it was with you, but just recently I had an experience where me and another person were speaking, and he had an idea, and it was like he just had an idea for me. And it was like the first time I ever made that connection. It was like, man, I just totally used his brain, and that was kind of it was a great experience. I didn't really get all over it, but I realized he just gave me that idea, and I didn't have to have it myself, but there was no way I would have the idea without that interaction with the second party. So, as with life, as with astronomy, as with friends and relationships, it's good to use as much of as many people as you can in it. Now listen, John, I don't get very many chances to speak with someone in the UK. Okay, we're going to go to break, and then we're going to find out what's going on in the UK with John. John, we'll be right back. Thank you. Does this sound okay? Is it too hot or anything? Good, thank you. Great. Great, I'm happy. Okay, we're going to go on break. I'm going to pop over to the chat room and say, this will go about, I think this goes 4 minutes. We still here? You there, John? Okay, I'm just. Yeah. Our friends are pretty cool. They do us pretty well. So that's why we're doing this, right? For them too. We're gonna roll into. Well, what I mean, is there anything that's what's on your Facebook page right now? Oh, you got a lot of Iran and war stuff though, huh? Okay. Well, listen, I was going to ask you what's going on over there in the UK. So let's have you do a few minutes, man. Okay. We just run it off for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll ask you some questions, and we'll just run through the next break on that. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Francis, and this is the first episode of Cosmic Obsession Nightlife. I wanted to take a quick moment, and this is the time for me to thank the people who brought me to AFR, and that would include John Zascoda. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he has his own show, Stranger Advice, from 1 to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, where you bring an open mind and John is going to fill it with very good content of the things that he's most interested in. So I want to thank John Zascoda. He's a great friend of mine on Facebook as well. He really helped me connect with American Freedom Radio and get this opportunity. Besides my work that I did with Sonia, the Truth of Girls Sonia, I want to thank her very much as well, because without their help, I don't know if I would have this show on Tuesday afternoon. Every week from 2 to 4 p.m. in New York City. So thank you, John. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, John, from the UK. Are you there, John? Listen, as I was saying before we went to break, there's not very many chances that I get to speak like I'm talking on the telephone from someone from the UK. I know that I do have a lot of friends that are positioned all around the globe, but why don't you give me 5, 10, 15-minute update of what's going on over the pond? Well, it's better than following nobody. But listen, sometimes we have to grab the reins and lead. You know what I mean? Now I know that last year you were involved. You got yourself involved with the comet Olenin. If we want to call it a fiasco, I really don't call it a fiasco, because I'll tell you what, I learned a lot over that experience. If there was an experience an amateur astronomer needed to get involved in to figure out what's up and what's down, I suppose that would be the situation. The only problem is, I found out in the end I've been really just trying to image ghosts. Do you know what I mean? I shot images like from October 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, right? And I used my robotic telescopes of the iTelescope.net network, and we used some of the best telescopes available. And I really had I don't think I was able to find it, John. Now, I also know that there's another astronomer from Italy who uses the Gross network, is Rolando Liguistri. I hope I said his name right. But he took a fabulous photo, and basically what I did, I think he took 5 images and stacked them together, and he was able to show us a color image of the cloud, the dust cloud that was comet Olenin. Now, it's important for the listeners to note that that dust cloud never got within 20 million miles of Earth. We've had stuff whizzing by a lot closer than that. And even to this date, I don't know if John and I can discover what made this comet so darn important. But before it was done, it got one heavy mass object researcher to say it was a heavy mass object, and he got another Mars researcher, another friend of ours, to say it was an alien spacecraft. So I, all along, tried my best to take pictures of it and come back and say, hey, this is it, it's a comet, kind of funny, kind of strange. Everybody wants me to think it's not, but it is what it is, right? John, let me ask you a question. Because as you're describing this, I'm saying to myself, man, that's just one convoluted story from start to finish, right? Do you get the feeling that it was all designed that way, and then if you feel that way and I feel that way, then that must mean there are people out there who are playing along with that design, right? And we're just sort of playing along. So this is a good point to make for all the listeners out there. Over this next year, 2012, there's a lot of events going on, and some that we may not even know about yet, that there is information out there that has only been confirmed to be disinformation. And there's no sense, beating around the bush and saying, oh, maybe he can be right this time, or maybe he can be right on the 10th time, or the 11th time, or the 12th time. I'm just going to say outright. A real, true amateur astronomer should be right more times than he's wrong. Right, John? Right. Because as soon as you have to have a precondition to get into the discussion, then you have a precondition to repeat that precondition. I know there's still some mystery. Yeah, it was September 2nd. Yeah, because that's true, because I know from my own knowledge that on August 26th it was first reported that the comet was shown to be breaking up by the astronomer Michael Mazziola. Michael Mazziola took a bunch of pictures of Comet Onion before it reached perihelion, and he was showing it showing it starting to get dimmer and dimmer. But then when I went I used a telescope located in Australia to take images on September 2nd, which would put it 7 days past starting to break up. I still have the pictures that show, a singular nucleus, and you can see them on YouTube. And, if there is anything about that whole experience, and I hope I don't go like this forever, I still, could use some, it would have been nice if somebody who was a lot smarter than me got involved with what I was doing and helped me through the process, Yeah, and Miss Jane Stigger. Miss Big, yeah, Miss Big Hat. Miss Big Hat. Miss Big Hat. Jane Stigger. Jane Stigger. Jane Stigger. Big Hat. Big Hat. Big Hat. Oh my God! It was terrible. It was terrible. I wish they weren't admins of that poor page, because I wasn't doing it for any other reason but just doing what I do, which is just reporting on what I do. They found it necessary to just not even listen to me, and I found it necessary to rub them the wrong way, I guess. Well, what was funny is I had a personal relationship with Leonid already, and me and Leonid were having conversations, behind the scenes. I was apologizing to him, he was apologizing to me, and I still feel, the whole experience for me was good, because I became friends with people like Leonid Elenin, and whatever anybody may say about him, I look at him as an astronomer who's got more experience than me. He's a real guy. He's still out there in Russia somewhere. If you want to go to Cosmic Obsession and look in the center of Russia where there's a red dot from somebody who visited CosmicObsession.com, you'll find that that's where Leonid Elenin came from. And besides him, I also got friendly and became friends with Richard Hoagland. And now Richard Hoagland plays another important part in these types of astronomical reports from the space outside our atmosphere that somehow must be confirmed because they cannot be ignored. And let's just say this, in the case that every man, woman, and child that wants to get up on the radio and on YouTube and on your Facebook in front of you and give you a story about something that they know is going to happen out in space, it is your responsibility therefore, then, next, the ball's in your court, to not wait for them to tell you what's right or what's wrong, but for you to go out and find out for yourself. So I still like all the people I was involved with. Friends with Leonid Lenin. I like to think I'm still friends with Richard Hoagland, though I don't hold his views. Though I feel like I know why he's doing what he's doing, because if I spent 28 years looking for an intelligent race that interacted with my own personal race, I might want that to happen before my career is over. So I'm going to shoot for the moon and call everything that's flying by a spaceship, and if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. But I know that for most of us, we don't really believe it, do we, John? I look at it like this. I may be traveling down a lonely street next to a train, and the train gets into a wreck. What am I going to do? I'm going to stop. I'm going to look. I'm going to help out. And I kind of like to make that analogy. And I know that there's a lot of listeners and viewers who share that opinion with me. I don't want to say that we are into this type of voyeurism where we want to watch people fail or we want to watch the train wreck. But if we watch it, if it's happening in front of us, we somehow either want to assist that person, group, man, woman, or child out of that poor situation, or you want to see how far they're going to take it. And that's where I find myself in some of these issues. But then again, it also goes back to what they say is important. If they're going to say something that's so traumatic to those who may not have an opportunity to discover for themselves the truth, that for every whack-a-mamie story out there should be one sane person following along, making a report of what he or she believes at the same time. And so if anybody wants to question why I do what I do, I feel like I have my bases covered as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And goes back to back to the old, what does an astronomer need to do? He needs something out in space so that, there are plenty of pretty things to look out into space, and some of the things that we're doing with the Cosmic Obsession Observatory is bringing those beautiful sights to the public through live broadcasts that we're going to do and do more of in the future. Well, I'll tell you, we put on, I think we can put in equipment this coming weekend, John. We're done. We're done. But we're not filled with equipment yet. So now the next few steps are going to take us up back to the dome, because we have to go back and look at the dome track and make sure the dome is adjusted and tuned properly. We're going to install the dome drive. We're going to install the telescope on top of the pier pipe. We're going to install the computers, and then once we get it all installed, we can start doing live broadcasts 3, 4, 5 times a week. Whenever we want it, whenever something needs to be shown from space and it's a clear night sky, we can go out there and do it at the permanent observatory. Before, we'd have to take our telescopes out, and we have an 11-inch Celestron, aplanatic Schmidt-Cassegrain, which is a great telescope, and we have at the Cosmic Obsession Observatory a 25-inch Obsession Dobsonian telescope. So I'm afforded the luxury, and that's purely what it is, because I'll tell you all right now, the only telescopes that I actually spend my own money on are the rentoscopes. This telescopes and the Cosmic Obsession Observatory is the brainchild and the product of my father-in-law. I am fortunate enough to have total access to it because I put some blood, sweat, and tears into the construction, and then I'm also required to put in the right amount of time on the efforts. You know what I mean? It's like you make a commitment to a good cause and you have to go all the way. It varies. I'll tell you that the rental costs vary per telescope, and it kind of gets confusing. And let me preface this answer with this message. iTelescopes.net, formerly known as globalrentoscope.com, is the same network, iTelescope.net. On the iTelescope.net network, you can find a page with the frequently asked questions, and these are in there. I recommend anyone who wants to go over there and try to use those telescopes to spend a couple of hours in the frequently asked questions, because I'm not going to answer all the questions there here right now. But the question was, what does it cost to use the telescopes? There are like 17 different telescopes, new telescopes that are coming online shortly in the next month or so, because they're building a new observatory as well. And each one has a little different cost. And it depends on what membership, because they go by memberships and membership stages. And I'm going to finish this answer when we get back from the break. Is it still okay? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you too, John. Are you having an okay time? Great. Excellent. I'm glad that you're here, because it would be kind of boring by myself. Listen, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a bunch of people from the iTelescope.net network coming on the show, and we're going to totally open up the iTelescope.net network of telescopes from people who really know what's going on. I am not. Well, I'm just friendly like heck, and they just really they've been nice to me in the sense that they're all, they like to thank me for the posts I make, and so much as comment and stuff. But I just have a great, I think everybody should try it once, Well, what I'll do when we get back from break, I'll go into a little bit about the costs and what I think about it, because that is a main part of what this show is going to be about. Is really about how listeners can get involved with themselves, even if they don't have a telescope. So, okay, a few more minutes, and then we'll go back on. welcome back. Welcome back to Cosmic Obsession Nightlife. Cosmic Obsession Nightlife on American Freedom Radio will be broadcast every Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. in New York City and from 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time. That's where I am, outside of Houston, Texas, in the Central Time of Texas. Now I have my friend John from the UK. John, are you still there? Hello, John. I wanted to take this moment because my friends are important to me, and I know your friends are important to you, John, to say hello to another UK friend, Mark Wade. I also want to say hello to my friend Orcus over there in Florida, Darla Hutchcoff Bailey, Susan Skid, Sue Ann Skid. Y'all have a great afternoon. Thank you for listening to Thank you for listening to Cosmic Obsession Nightlife. Now, John, I was talking about the iTelescope.net telescopes because you had asked me what the telescopes cost to use, because the iTelescope.net network of telescopes, robotic telescopes located on 3 continents around the globe, are rental scopes, and they have about 17 different telescopes that all have a different price per hour of use. Now, the way that iTelescope.net works is they have memberships and certain levels of memberships, starting from as little as $40 a month to $90 a month, and they go higher and higher. iTelescope.net has astronomy clubs, and groups sign up together so that they can have a membership where they can all share. And the benefits of having a membership that's a little bit larger means that you get more points every month for that membership. And the way the telescopes run is they run off of points. And it goes imaging points per hour. And now, I'll tell you from my experience, I can use a telescope for about 15 to 20 minutes, and it'll cost about $1 a minute. So I can go out and take a number of images, 2, 3, 4, 5 images, and it'll cost about $20 a session. I can take less images in a session and it'll cost less. And besides that, there are also discounts that can be had during the month, because we have different moon phases during the month, and depending on where the moon is in the sky, with the moon's ambient light, can affect your imaging, and iTelescope.net gives you discounts for where the moon is in the sky, and you can get as much as a 50% discount because the moon is in the sky. And I'll tell you, using these telescopes and the different filters, the moon doesn't necessarily get in the way even if it's up, because you can take a narrow band filter and shoot something out in space and the moonlight really doesn't affect your imaging at all. So I think the answer goes, about $20 every half an hour. But see, you're using the telescopes, and it's not necessarily counting down every second that you're using it. It counts for imaging time. And then if you get done imaging and the moon does affect your images, or the weather gets deteriorated, iTelescope.net has an automatic refund for imaging sessions that you're not satisfied with. So I tell you, the robotic telescopes that I use have multiple redundant safety systems so that you're not wasting your money using the telescopes. You know what I mean? It's all web. It's all web based. There is no software that you have to download to interact with their FTP. Interact with their website service. After you've used the telescopes, they download the images that you took into an FTP server, a private one, once you have a membership, to where you can access the photos. They leave the photos on that server for about 60 days. So they expect you to take the photos off and save them yourself. And I actually found out the hard way about that process. So for me to say that, if you're going to go over there and take pictures using the iTelescope.net network, and they go into their FTP server or library of your photos, remember to save them onto your own hard drive somewhere, because after so many days they do empty the folders, because having to hold all those photos generates enormous amounts of data space. Right, there's astronomical image, and this is some of this information I found out just through using these telescopes. The telescopes at itelescope.net will return back to me what is called a FIT file. They'll actually return back a TIFF file or a FIT file. But a FIT file, .fit, is an astronomical file where within that file you have the image and you have supporting data from the telescope. So you have a FITS heading, and it reports where the image, what coordinates the image was taken from, the time, the image run, and there's a lot of extra information. Now, if you take one image and you open it up in the software and you look at it, and let's say I expose that image for 180 seconds, it shows me 180 seconds worth of absorbed light. The more exposure you can add to that image, the more resolution you'll get. And you can even go so far as to intersperse different filters and stack them together and get a totally different composite image of what's actually out there. So basically you can look at a single image, but you're getting a single image worth of information. And I've done that quite frequently. When I'm looking for a certain object, I can take a single luminance filter or a single red filter and do a reverse scale and put it in negative, and it shows me each and every star up to a certain magnitude that's in that field of view. And then I can go correspond that to a known star chart and start looking for the objects that are in my picture and not in the star chart. But the more exposure time, which means maybe it'll take 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures, you put that into software, make a composite, and it blends all the layers together, and you get a more rich photo. But it's not necessarily necessary, because you can take a very long exposure, like a 900-second exposure with one image and come out with a fantastic result, which would be the same if you took the 900-second exposure and broke it down into 10 90-second exposures. You know what I mean? Okay. Right, there's two different things we're talking about there. The residual bulk image, or RBI, was something I ran into. And what that was is when I used the itelescope.net telescopes, the telescopes will focus. They have to focus where, they have to know where the object is, and then once they know through the coordinates where the object is, they'll go to that general area and find a star, not the object, a star, and focus on that star. What happens when they do that, so what happens is the telescope centers the star right in the center of the image, it focuses, and then it begins the imaging run, which means it'll move over to the object you want, and it'll start taking your first picture. What I found out is RBI is an effect that light from that focus star transits over onto the first image. And it threw me for a loop at first. There was a couple of images back in 2011 where I would look at it and I would say, "Oh, there's the comet," but I had to find out that wasn't a comet. It was this RBI residual effect. Now there was something else you mentioned. People have seen donuts in the images that I've taken. What's this donut? And I saw sometime back in 2011 somebody used these donuts and tried to represent them as the object they were looking for. But I know for myself personally,